We are on air. Today is Thursday, September 20th, and this is a meeting to check in on community outreach for Backdrop CMS. Let's see, starting with the website, we know we have some outstanding tasks around modules, themes, and layout pages. That's issue number 442. There's also some other stuff I think that's happened on the website recently that might be worth mentioning. We created a new page that helped identify all of our GitHub repositories and what each one is used for. And that's under the resources section as a subpage. So if anyone's curious about, I mean, obviously our code base is pretty easy to find. It's backdrop, but there are a bunch of other repositories we have on GitHub that manage all of our various websites, our issue queues, other things like the GitHub integration. There's a ton of stuff that we have under a backdrop ops group or under the backdrop contrib group, and people were having trouble figuring out where to go to find things. So we put this page on backdropcms.org so that anyone who wanted to find stuff specifically would have a reference to figure out where to get it. So let's see, backdropcms.org, support resources, and then in the GitHub bullet point, it says Backdrop also has a handful of other repositories and queues. And if you click on that link, there's a list of everything, I think everything we have on GitHub. There are a couple of things that are like, here are a bunch more groups, so that if we add more stuff in the future and forget to update this page with a specific bullet point for it, people will at least have the group link, so they'll be able to find the stuff that's in those groups later. So I tried to make it as transparent as possible as to where everything could be found. But yeah.
I've been finding that helpful already. Thanks.
Good. Good. And definitely, if you, anyone who's an editor on backdropcms.org, if there's like language updates or things you want to add, go ahead. I would much rather have more information there. We can, revise as necessary, but I would encourage people to make whatever changes you think are improvements, and you can adjust as needed.
Sure. My practice on that so far has been to make the change and then just post somewhere that, hey, I did this, if anybody has comments.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so other things coming up for our website. We have a new blog post, thanks to Tim. Thank you for writing that, about Backdrop 111. And in general, anyone who wants to write a blog post about anything is encouraged to post it directly onto backdropcms.org if you want to. We have a process where at least once a week, somebody will review all of the unpublished content. And so if you have an unpublished blog post and you want it to go live, we can do that. The one caveat is that if it's a week where we have a backdrop release, we're probably going to want to publish the backdrop blog post about the release. So if you have a pending blog post in that particular time period, it might have to wait 2 weeks or so before that goes up. But in general, we've had a bunch of questions about like a Backdrop Planet. And I do want to remind everyone that the blog is open to anyone who has a Backdrop account. So if you want to write a blog post and you don't have your own website, you can definitely use the Backdrop site to do that. Other things we want to put on our blog, we are a member of the Backdrop Software Freedom Conservancy. We've got some financial issues we need to sort out with them, which I think is currently on Nate's plate to figure out what we're going to do with that. But as soon as we get that done, we have blog posts that we want to write announcing our membership of the Conservancy and requesting people to make donations through their system. And then also we want to have another post specifically about from Nate, which he doesn't have to write. He just has to kind of think about it maybe one day when he's in the shower. What are the like 5 things, like points I want to make in this blog post, and write those down, and we can hand it over to our content strategy team, who will write the blog post and hand it to Nate. And then all Nate has to do is edit it and make sure it's like actually what he wanted to say. So it should be pretty easy. But Nate's been a little busy with our Backdrop release lately. So maybe now that it's out,
I can help.
We can get to that. We also might want to write a blog post about security. I think we had one that Gregory wrote a while ago that he had to wait for permission from his company and some of his coworkers to mention their names in there. So it didn't come out quite as timely enough as we would have liked to coincide with all of the security updates we were doing for Backdrop. But we have also recently added or updated the security page on backdropcms.org. So it might be worth doing another security blog post. If anyone wanted to talk about our process there, it'd be good to be a little bit more transparent about that. Also, what's come up recently is we've had a bunch of people testing Backdrop for possible security exploits, and not necessarily Backdrop people either, just people, general good doers in the world that are trying to help identify security issues with pieces of software. And one of them asked if we created CVEs. What is that? Do you know what that stands for, Nate? It's community version.
I think it's critical vulnerability exploiters. I don't know, but it's the global system for tracking security issues across all software. So CVEs are unique across all applications, and so a CVE, if you Google it, it means that one particular application and this one particular vulnerability within it.
So I think it would probably be a good idea if we started doing that, but there might be a process by which we need to get into that system. And I don't know how that works. Nate, I don't know if you have any experience with that from Drupal.
Okay, so doing quick Google, it's common vulnerabilities and exposures. There we go. Yeah, there's a central website that you request a CVE identifier, and then they basically namespace it for you. I think what happens is that you can request one and then update what it actually is at a later time. The Drupal convention for this, up until recently, I'm not sure if this is still the case, but I know what they would previously do is announce the Drupal security vulnerability first, and then they would say a CVE has been requested for this vulnerability. So they would announce it via Drupal.org. At the same time that then they would send over the exploit information to the central system and get a CVE, and then they would go back and update the blog post or the security announcement retroactively with the CVE afterwards.
Okay. So we could do that too then with our process, so we could sort of release on the same day as Drupal if we needed to, request the CVE, get it later, and update all of our documentation. Okay, so maybe we just need to add that as a bullet point for security release in our security release checklist, to have somebody do that after the release is out and get that number and get it into our blog post. Do we know how long that turnaround is? Is it like hours, or is it?
I've never done one before, but yeah, I think it's in that time frame.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. All right, so I think that might also be something that would warrant a blog post to announce that that's going to be part of our process. We have, all these new people who are interested in getting involved. It would be good to have their involvement in that too. Maybe they would even be interested in helping us get the CVEs and stuff. So it could be fun. All right, another idea for blog posts are integrations with external services. Fastly, in particular, has offered to be our CDN provider for all of the backdropcms.org properties. I would love to get a blog post up talking about how we've implemented that, but we will need to implement it first. So if we have anyone who is interested in setting up CDNs, backdropcms.org could use your love and support. So I don't know what's involved on the Backdrop side. I think we could probably do it without adding any external or additional modules, but Fastly does have a Drupal module. And so if somebody wanted to port the Drupal module to Backdrop, then Fastly would have a Backdrop module. And what that does is it allows you to mark pages in the CDN as stale when they get updated on the Backdrop site. So if we were to make an update to a security announcement, right, we would want the CVE to be available to everybody, whether they're logged into the site or not. And so we would want to trigger the flushing of that page on the CDN side when that happened. So I think it would be great to get that Fastly module ported, although we could manually clear those pages from the CDN after the blog post was written or the security announcement was posted. It's just not as nice, obviously, as having it done automatically. Let's see, Community Spotlight. So this is issue number 165 in the backdropcms.org queue. Our content writers have offered to take over our Community Spotlight interviews and blog posts for us. So when we don't have any ideas for blog posts or newsletter content, they will reach out to somebody on the list and conduct some of the interview questions. Their first steps there were to look at the questions that we're asking about members of our community and make some recommendations for additional questions that they thought might be valuable, which I thought was good. Right now they're working on, I'll get to that in a minute, but so that's on their plate for in the future. We have a tag in our issue queue called blog posts. So if there's anything that you in particular want to see in the blog, you can also create an issue in the issue queue and tag it with the blog posts tag. And then anyone who wants to write a blog post, doesn't know what to write one about, can check the issue queue for that tag, and then they'll find interesting ideas for blog posts in there as well. So hopefully we're creating the content people want to see and providing people who want to write content with a list of things that they can write about. The next item on this list is Backdrop Planet. So Tim, do you want to bring this up and talk about ideas for it? I think you added it to the agenda.
I did add it to the agenda, but largely because there was somebody, I think Panda had asked about it in the issue queue. And okay. I was trying to remember, I knew that it had come up before, but I couldn't remember like exactly what the answer was. And I think you've sort of answered that already. So.
Slightly. So just for anyone who's watching the video, not coming from the Drupal world, there was a thing called Drupal Planet, where if you had your own blog, you could request the ability to submit an RSS feed to Drupal.org, and it would aggregate and curate anyone around the world who was writing any content about Drupal. So other people who are interested in content about Drupal could subscribe to the Drupal Planet, and they would see what everybody around the world was doing. So that was really great when there was a whole bunch of content coming from various places and you wanted to see what was going on. It was a great place to kind of check in and figure out what other people are doing, change it, share ideas. When we first started Backdrop, it came up, maybe we should do something like that. But at the time, we thought there weren't enough people who had blogs that were devoted to Backdrop, or, in the case of a lot of Backdrop sites, a blog with a taxonomy term assigned to Backdrop, or something they could generate a feed from. And someone asked about it again recently, and I thought, well, maybe there is enough content now that would be worthwhile creating. But as in the interim, we have opened up our blog on backdropcms.org to everybody. So we are removing the requirement that you have your own website and are publishing blog posts there. But there are still people who would rather have a blog post they write on their own website than on ours. And so having a way to pull in that content and aggregate it from different sources is also valuable. So I said, I think in the issue, that I was open to doing that. We just need to figure out timing around it. And another thing to think about too is that today things are a little bit different with the way people deal with RSS feeds than they were 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whenever it was Drupal started their Planet. And I'm not sure that that's the best tool for that anymore. The good thing is there's a tool we have, and it's fairly easy to set up. So whether it's the best one or not, if we made it, it would be the best one we had. So it's just kind of worth thinking about, like, if we set this up and it doesn't work, should we be thinking about something similar that might work better for our people? So in terms of what we would have to do on our site would be something like setting up the aggregator module. We would need a person who would be responsible for handling the requests coming in about adding sites to it. And then we would need just a view that would display the information in ways that people found valuable on our site. We already have a section on our website called Mentions, which allows us to manually place a link to someone's post on Backdrop. So if we find something on the internet or somebody wants to submit a link to their own site, they can do that now. But that process is manual. And the advantage of doing something like Backdrop Planet would be that once somebody created one post on their site, and set up that connection between their site and Backdrop site, any future posts that they created on their site would automatically appear in the Planet without needing any manual intervention from any one of our administrators. So there is sort of an advantage with at bulk. We would want to not have to add every post manually because we haven't reached that bulk threshold yet. It hasn't been too unmanageable for us to do it manually, but I definitely think that now that we're starting to grow, it is a good conversation to have. So Tim, I know you're an admin on the Backdrop site now. If you wanted to start playing with that, I'm running aggregator module on one of my client sites now, so I know that it's available. It would be great to, give it some testing and see if that would work for us on Backdrop. And then, we can play with, like, I've got a blog, Nate's got a blog. Like, we've got some test sites we can plug in there and see if it would work. So I don't know if that's interesting to you or not. We could also kick that to Peter, BW Panda, and see if he wanted to set it up. But yeah, it's something I think would be a minimal amount of effort and probably would provide a good service for our community. So definitely open to making that happen.
Okay, well, I think just the quantity, whether there's enough sites ready for it is the main issue. And yeah, I'd be willing to put time into it if I thought that there was a need for it, but I'm busy enough that if it really isn't.
Maybe what we should do is leave the issue open for a while and ask for feedback. Or here's another idea. On our agenda, we have a section for what should we tweet about right now? Maybe we should ask people via Twitter whether they would like to be a part of a Backdrop Planet.
Sure. I mean, sort of having a threshold too, do we think we have at least 5 websites that are posting once a month on Backdrop?
Yeah.
Something like that would sort of help have an idea when we might be ready.
Okay. I think that's a good number.
Okay.
I know I don't post once a month on Backdrop.
Well, I think sometimes setting numbers like that can, be like a goal.
Motivator.
A motivator for people to say, oh, yeah, okay, I could make that my goal.
Yeah.
Try and post once a month. So I don't know if it'll work, but.
It's a good idea. All right. And then the next issue on the agenda is documenting where to put issues related to marketing or promoting Backdrop CMS. This is issue number 467 in the backdropcms.org queue. This is actually, I think, issue 467 is a bigger issue about sort of where do we do everything. And I think we're making a little bit of progress with the GitHub thing. But I think also, for people who aren't GitHub users, having a specific place that says, hey, are you good at writing blog posts? Or are you good at, helping us with outreach? Telling those people that they have to use GitHub, or at least they should expect that's where, a lot of the community is keeping track of these things. We did talk at the very beginning about, is this the best place for these tickets, because the people that we want to involve aren't necessarily GitHub users. And we decided we didn't know. We suspected it probably wasn't, but it was the tool we had. And so that's why the issues are there now. I think if we can get more people involved who have strong opinions that this is not the right place to do it, we might be motivated to change the way that we handle tickets related to outreach. But because right now the majority of people who are working on outreach are also people who are on GitHub anyway, it seems to be very convenient to manage your outreach tickets in the same way that you manage your other tickets. So I think we should just be mindful that there might be people who don't fit into that group. And if they want to get involved, making them aware of the fact that we are willing to work with what their needs are too. So thanks for adding that section there, Tim, about where to find those issues in that GitHub master list.
Mm-hmm.
All right, newsletter. So we have right now our marketing team working on adapting your blog post, Tim, to make content for the newsletter. So usually what we like to do with the new release is we send a newsletter that has some of the highlights about what's in the latest release with a link to the blog post to read about all of the exciting things that are in the new release rather than just a few of them. And so they're taking the content from the blog post and they're working it into newsletter format. And then they'll probably also look at a couple of the most recent blog posts and see if there's anything else there that we need to point at as an afterthought. And that will be ready to go out to the same time as we push the release to Pantheon, which should be not tomorrow, but next Friday, or maybe even next Saturday, depending on people's availability. So 2 weeks from the release is usually our window for when we like to push to Pantheon. That'll give everybody a chance, or it'll give a handful of people a chance to do the testing on the release and make sure that there's nothing terribly wrong that we need to fix before it goes to Pantheon. So once it's on Pantheon, Pantheon will notify everybody that they need to update right away. And so if we know there's an issue, we would like to fix it. Most of the time, there's not an issue and it's not a problem, but we do give ourselves a little bit of a buffer there just to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, other ideas for newsletters match the ideas that we had for the blog posts. So in general, we can send a newsletter and point to a blog post. But if there are other things we might want to let people know about who aren't following our blog, newsletter is a good way to do it. So if there's a big event like Bad Camp coming up with a backdrop training and a backdrop summit, that might be something to mention in the newsletter. I have a meeting, I think, with the outreach or the marketing team later today. So I will see if they can throw that into the next newsletter too. And then, yeah, anything else we think is relevant. We have an issue tag in the backdropcms.org queue called newsletter. So if there's stuff we want to put in the newsletter, we can tag it with that and we can get it into a newsletter. Videos. People love videos. In general, anyone wants to make a video about Backdrop, we are highly supportive of it. There have been a bunch of fantastic videos that have been created recently. When that happens, we try and put them into Backdrop's channel, I think is what it's called on YouTube, where you can take any video and add it to a specific channel. Tim, this might be of something of interest to you too. We have a bunch of different channels on YouTube that I don't think are heavily used. I don't know if there's a page on backdropcms.org that mentions them all, but there's one that's on presentations. There's one that's like tutorials. There's one that's all of these weekly meetings. So I think if we can help kind of steer people towards the feed of video information that they're interested in, that could be really valuable as well. So I think I wrote that up somewhere, and at the time I thought, I'm not sure this is a good enough explanation of what we're doing with videos. So if you wanted to find that and help figure out how to clarify for people, that would be great. It might also be on that resources page. But yeah, I think there are other places where just like videos are on YouTube and linked to our YouTube channel. And it is much more useful if you can get like, I'm specifically interested in tutorials, to go to the tutorial section. So some way to clarify that, or maybe you just mention it on the channel. I don't know, just a thought there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we are always interested in having more people create videos. Anyone can create them on their own YouTube account. You don't need to be part of the Backdrop group or anything. Just let us know about it so that we can grab that video and throw it into one of those feeds. Ideas for videos are also welcome. So again, you can use the backdropcms.org queue. There's an issue tag there called videos. So if there's something you really want to see, we can put it into that queue and we can try and address it. A couple of ideas I had for videos were unbranded pages. So the ability in Backdrop to remove your header and footer is something that you don't get with Drupal or many other systems. So that I thought was a big selling point. How to update a Pantheon site, which is a little bit different than updating a not Pantheon site, and it is really relevant right now. So that might be good to do right before the update to 1.12 becomes available for Pantheon. And then somebody had a question on how to port tests. Tests are something that are not required for you to run a module on your site, but many contrib modules contain them to make sure the module is working. And so when you're porting a module from Drupal to Backdrop, running the tests is a great way to find out if you've done the port correctly. But the test system has changed a little bit between Drupal and Backdrop, and running through like how to make those changes in a sort of a methodical way is useful to people who haven't done it before. So I've gotten a question a couple of times on how to update the tests. We have some documentation on the how to port a module section, but I think seeing it in a video might be more beneficial to people. So if anyone is working on porting tests and has the ability to turn on a screen capture at the same time, I think that would be really valuable for people to watch. And again, if there's other things you want to see in videos, please create an issue and we can work on that as well. Next up is tweets. So we talked about a couple of things today we can tweet about. BADCamp is coming up. There's going to be a Backdrop full day training and a Backdrop summit there. I think we've been tweeting about that already. It also would be great to tweet about the Backdrop Planet and see if people are interested in that. Anything else you think we're working on right now and need to share with Twitter, we definitely can make that happen. So we have an issue as well, number 439, where people can post about things we need to tweet about regularly. Also, if there are things that are super relevant, pinging someone who can tweet and getting the tweet happen right away is good too. So you can always in Getter say, hey, can someone from Backdrop tweet whatever. We have a handful of people who have access to that Backdrop Twitter account. So hopefully somebody in there will be able to do that. Also, if you are great at social media and want to be one of these people that has access to the Backdrop Twitter account, that would also be appreciated. Let's see, Backdrop mentions, I think we talked about this already. So this is the section of our website where we can post links to Backdrop elsewhere on the web. So if you find a fantastic article about Backdrop and we aren't already sharing it on the mentions section of our website, you can log in and add it. It's again one of those things that's available for anyone who has an account on backdropcms.org too. All right, events and meetups. So next weekend, I believe, is Drupal Corn, which is a fantastic Drupal event in Iowa. Tim, are you going this year?
I am, yep.
So there are a great bunch of people. There's a bunch of local Iowans who are very much in support of Backdrop. Nate and I have been to the event a bunch of times. There's a bunch of, really passionate organizers who do a great job with that. So it's one of my favorite Drupal events. Also, you can sometimes stand in a big field of corn, which is great because it's called Drupal Corn. You're in Iowa and you're trying to buy corn. Fun stuff. Drupal Corn is actually the event where Drup, the dragon, was selected as a dragon. We didn't even have a dragon yet. Mm-hmm. So thanks to the folks at Drupal Corn for helping inspire the mascot for Backdrop. I don't know if there's going to be any sessions there about Backdrop, but I know for sure there will be a BOF, probably run by Tim. And then if you're interested in chatting about Backdrop, because there's a bunch of people there who are interested in chatting as well, there are opportunities there to just talk to anyone in the hallway or at a party or what have you about what's going on with Backdrop. If you're interested in other upcoming events, you can always check backdropcms.org/news/events. There are a bunch of big ones coming up. We mentioned BADCamp a couple of times. There's also Drupal South and anything else that any of our folks are planning on attending usually ends up on that list. Let's see, Tim, I think you added this to the agenda as well. Should we set up an event around the release of Backdrop 112? So Backdrop 112 is scheduled to come out around January 15th next year. So that is definitely plenty of time to organize some kind of an event. I think that would be a great idea. And I think it says here, both to encourage participation, but mostly to raise awareness and build community for Backdrop. So those are fantastic motivators for having the event. Mm-hmm. I would love to see, my preference would be either a sprint right before. So if there are enough people who are interested in actually working on Backdrop, that could be organized. Mm-hmm. But I think what might be better in terms of spreading awareness would be a party afterwards. That's sort of a less commitment, more social, more fun sort of arrangement where you'd be like, yay, it's been 4 years of Backdrop. Is that right? 2015, 16, 17. Yeah. Wow. So that would be great. You'd be like, Backdrop is 4 years old party. Yeah. We could have like a Backdrop cake and candles and streamers and I don't know, dragon, what do dragons eat? Oh, let's not feed the dragon. That sounds dangerous. But yeah, that could be really fun. So I think that would be great. I don't know where we should do it. It's in the middle of January. So I don't know if this is something we should do everybody plan something in your local area and we do it together sort of thing, where we could have one computer that's connected to Gitter or something and everybody be like, happy Backdrop birthday. Another thing that's kind of fun is that January 15th is also Drupal's birthday. So we could do a Drupal Backdrop birthday party together. And that might be a way to get people who are excited about Drupal more aware about what's going on in Backdrop too. So if you think it's relevant for both of them, you could do both. So fun conversation idea. I think you're muted if you're trying to talk.
I like the idea. I think you're right that sort of a party would get more people. I think also, the other thought was just sort of a demo. Hey, look what's new in Backdrop. But I think you could do both of those. Really, a party and a demo. Here's what we've done. I like the idea of trying to get, again, very reasonable number, but like shoot for, let's have 5. Try and get 5 different remote events going, and set the bar low.
Yeah.
But with the idea to sort of set that expectation that there is a community out there. There's people in different communities, and I'd be happy to host one here. You could do one there, and I think we could get to 5 pretty easy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's great. I think we should post about this in the forum in our events thing, and I will set up something here, definitely something casual. And I want to also post it on the Backdrop events page on backdropcms.org. And I think if we can get all of those going now, we can also sort of generate excitement about people who might want to do something in their area too. And Tim, if you can sell this idea when you're in Iowa, maybe we can get an Iowa one, that would be really fun. So exciting times.
I think having a goal, like saying we're trying to find 5 locations, or be more, if you think that's going to be too easy, go for 10.
Well, let's do 5 first. When we get 5, we'll say, hey, we got 5, let's get 10.
Okay, good point.
Can we do it? Who's location number 10? We're sending you a free cake with a dragon on it or something. I don't know. Yep. Yeah, that could be fun.
Yep.
Great idea. Yay. Okay. So I'm going to kill the sprint before. I'm going to say party, and let's call it a birthday.
Sure, I didn't realize that would work, but if that'll work, that's a great angle.
Yeah. And because it's Drupal's birthday, I think that would also be good for cross collaboration there too.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that idea, but I'm curious how it's going to work.
Yeah, me too. We'll see.
So, but if people have good ideas, great.
All right, let's see. Other things, if you're curious about our larger content strategy, there's an issue on GitHub. It's issue 349 in the backdropcms.org queue. And that basically says, like, what is the type of content we want to get out there and what is the medium on which it should be released. So blog post, newsletter, tweet, video, etc. And that's just sort of so we can see how things are fitting together in a bigger picture. But it's not a rule. It's just kind of a good visual tool for us to make sure we're staying on top of stuff we might otherwise be missing. So that's it for today's agenda. Is there anything else anyone would like to discuss related to these issues or otherwise? You're muted again. Thank you for muting yourself all the time, though. You're very good at that.
I raised this last time when you weren't here, Jen. I was curious if there's any kind of a marketing plan or an outreach plan. As I've mentioned a few times already today, having goals like, X blog posts per month or per quarter or something. That works for me. And I think, if there were a plan saying, we want to be posting so often on Twitter, these are all things we can check and say, hey, are we meeting our goals? And I find they're more likely to happen if you have, you have a plan, you have some realistic goals. I don't know if you've done anything like that before, and I brought this up partly because, Bad Camp might be a good time to sit down and like draft a plan.
Yeah. I think this is a great idea. I mean, we have a general idea of we want to send a newsletter once a month. We want the newsletter to highlight a blog post. So if we can get a blog post once a month, that's ideal. Every now and then we have a month with a lot going on and we get more blog posts, and every now and then we have a month that's quiet and we don't get any. We don't have an official date count thing. I think that that would be helpful if we had that. That would sort of make those quiet months less quiet. So far, it's just been very much like, what's going on? Let's tell people about it. Not so much like, let's think of something to tell people when we aren't doing anything exciting. Like maybe we should remind them that this thing we did a year ago was exciting and report back on how it's doing. So I definitely think having a date, a number, and more importantly, someone who's paying attention to it would be good too. Because I think a lot of times we have like, oh yeah, one a month. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait, did a whole month go by and we didn't do anything? And now we have to skip a newsletter. So I think, yeah, in general, having a plan would be good. And then we could use this meeting to check and see if we're on track with our plan. That would be fantastic. So I would love to spend some time with you at Bad Camp to nail down what that should be. If you have any ideas you want to jot down before then, yeah, find an issue to dump it in. I don't know if you want to make a new one or use an existing one, but yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea to have a plan and attempt to stick to it.
Great. I think if you're at like, if you have a plan, you can say, hey, we need a tweet to reach our goal this week, or we need and that kind of specific request has more of a response than just, hey, do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking. All right. Well, is there anything else we should talk about? Nate, do you have any ideas about anything? No. All right.
From the end here.
Well, since we have 4 viewers right now, I think we should show them a kitten. And since I have one hanging out behind my computer. Some people come for the backdrop and some people come for the kittens. This one's black, so sometimes he doesn't show up very well on video.
We have 4 people that are not on the call that are watching?
Yes.
Nice.
So 4 people watching the live stream, and then sometimes we have people who watch afterwards. And I know Jonathan Degerhart, he often comes just for the kittens. So it's good to, you know, give people what they want. Here's a kitten. All right, kitten one's down.
See if I can find more cats.
Oh, yeah. Hey, anyone want to adopt kittens? The 2 that Nate's after are available for adoption. This black one's taken. There's another one somewhere around here that's also taken. Oh, you're muted again. You'll get the hang of it.
Too good at that. This might be slightly off topic, but I copied a lot of Nate's content from the release notes into the blog post, and some people have reported some typos that are just not that significant, but you know, I could fix the blog post. Do we care about minor typos in the release notes?
Yeah, I think it would be good if we could fix them. I don't know if you have access to edit that on GitHub or not. I don't know what it takes to get access to
I've
that,
been finding that I have permission to do things that I wasn't able to before, so I don't know if I do now. I'm sure I could before, but I could. How would I do that?
So I don't know where that happens.
So the release notes on GitHub, I think you have to be a committer in order to edit them. So
okay. So do I
actually
open a ticket, or should I just send them to somebody? Or
You can send them to Nate or me, or yeah, open a ticket somewhere. That way they won't get lost.
Okay. Sure. That's it.
Or Jeff. Who else is a committer? Doc Wilmot. Yeah, I'll put in a ticket somewhere. We'll get it sorted.
Okay. I just didn't want to bother with that if it was too trivial to worry about, but
yeah, it's not urgent, but I'd love to get it updated, especially if we know about it. Sure. Seems like, why not?
Okay.
All right. Well, we have another meeting in 10 minutes that'll be specifically focused on development tickets. But again, we have an open Q&A at the end of every meeting. So if you have a question that's not related to what we're talking about in the meeting and there are a bunch of people there that might know the answer, always welcome to ask it. So we will meet again in 10 minutes. But thanks everybody for watching live. Hope you got your kitten fix, and we will see you next meeting. Bye.